Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack, the muscle and mobility maker with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I'm going to be showing you how to fix that medial scapular winging that you have. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, like I said, today we're gonna be helping you with that medial scapular winging that you've been struggling with. Now, the very first thing I want to make well understood is that there are two types of scapular winging that you could have. First of all, medial is where it hugs the spinal column, and the scapula is closer to the spinal column than normal. It's not centered the way that it should be. And there is also lateral scapular winging. This is when the scapula is more protracted away from the spinal column itself. So we want to make sure that you have the right one because we're going to be addressing these differently based off of which one it is. And today, again, it is medial scapular winging that we're looking at. So that's the very first thing we want to make sure that we have down. From there, once we know that it's medial scapular winging, there's a couple important things that we can be looking at. First of all, if you have any history of injury to your C5 to C7 range of your cervical spinal column, this is something that could be at play that's causing you to have that scapular winging. So if there's any impingement or damage to those nerve roots, that could be affecting your serratus anterior muscle, which is what causes us to actually have more of that anterolateral protraction of the shoulder and the ability to actually rotate the shoulder upward as we're working. So that's very important. If there's any history of injury at your cervical spine in that 5 to 7 range, then it could be what's causing your, and is likely what's causing your medial scapular winging, which I'm going to show you how we can address things at the cervical spine as well as part of fixing this medial scapular winging. So we'll be working on that, but just know that that could be what's completely causing this winging for you. Ready? Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into these exercises here and start to work and chip away at that medial winging that you're struggling with. All right, like I mentioned, medial scapular winging can come right from your cervical spinal column, specifically that 5 to 7 range. So here we're going to take a rubber band and place it at the base of the neck so it sits over the traps here. You want to be pulling down with both arms so you're trying to lengthen them. So we want a band that you can actually get some tension on, not stressing yourself too much trying to pull that band down. And it should be about 1 inch thick, you'll see, in the band width here. So what I want to do is get those shoulders down and back. I'm going to start by rolling the head side to side, trying to get my ear as close to the mat as possible, and then do a little bit of a head nod yes. So the yeses and nos are what you can think of there. Now I want to anchor one side as I pull the other side out. So I'm going out to the side at shoulder height, and I'm going to turn my head away, actually assisting that rotation as I pull the band. So I'm going to feel that band assist my rotation on my neck and give a little bit of self-myofascial release at the back with those tissues. Actually feels pretty good as you're doing it once you get that coordination down here. The last setup we're going to use, you're going to cross the band over from one side to the other hand, and that's the hand you're going to be pulling into tension. The other band end is going over the outside of your jaw, so keep your jaw lightly clenched here, tongue behind your top teeth, and we're going to assist the rotation. So as the one arm's pulling the band down, you're actively pulling your forearm to the floor, helping your head once again rotate passively. Now we're going to move on to the scapula itself here. So what we want to do is anchor a band at shoulder height when you're in the half kneeling position, and we're going to place it over the front of the shoulder. Now here I've got a pretty thick band, but I've been doing this for a while, so start lighter, probably using the similar band to what you did for the cervical spine here. And what we want to do is actively protract the shoulder from this internally rotated position. So I have my arm behind my back, and I'm going to squeeze it into protraction. Once I do a few of those, I'm going to go ahead and also add a roll to the shoulder. So I'm going to protract it, I'm going to send it up into elevation, and I'm going to bring it back around. So the band is actively pulling me into my compensation right now, and I have to resist that. That's where we're going to build some stability and strength. Next, we want to move it down to the elbow here. So we're pulling with a little bit longer of a lever at the arm here, but we're doing the same movements. So I'm still going to protract the shoulder at first. And I want to make sure that I'm not rotating my torso. That's important, that it is coming from the scapula, that my torso is staying steady, and that it's really just my shoulder blade that is creating this movement here in both the protraction and then the elevation and roll in this movement. Next, we're going to place it at the top of the shoulder and get ourselves into a little side position here so that we can actively reach that upward rotation here. So I want that band pulling again down at the top of the shoulder. I'm a little bit anchored sideways here. I got the one arm planted, and then I'm going to be reaching out overhead, and you'll notice I'm rotating my palm back as I reach out overhead. Think of almost screwing the arm or corkscrewing the arm up as you reach each time. Try and fully reach and even push into the resistance of that band, shrugging that shoulder up into the ear, really maxing out that extension of the arm overhead. All right, and one more with the band anchored at this height. We're gonna do some scapular punches here. So what I wanna do is make sure I have that band gripped well, my wrist is neutral. I'm keeping my arm as straight as possible, but you'll see that I'm going to protract again that scapula around my rib cage. So I wanna reach, I'm gonna internally rotate my arm as I reach, and I wanna fully max out that reach without rotating my torso as I'm doing so. So I'm holding myself on the other side to make sure that I'm minimizing any rotation that could come from my torso and that it is solely coming from the scapula. When the arm comes back, we just want to come back to a neutral position. And one more punch here, we're going to do an uppercut as well. So we want to go ahead and keep a little bend to the elbow this time. And again, I'm rotating the elbow inward, spinning it forward, rotating my palm back as I uppercut overhead. So keep that slight bend. We should feel that on the rib cage just below the armpit. That is your serratus anterior, making sure that you are activating that, or at least trying to get that feel and sensation in that area. All right, next we're gonna do a little bit of self-myofascial release to those tissues that have been stabilizing that scapula. And this is gonna run right between the spinal column and the scapula itself. So we wanna run that vertical line right between those two. Place the ball at the base of the neck where the trap is, and we're gonna go ahead and hug ourselves so that we pull those scapula away from one another and really open up that range as much as possible. So here we're gonna be hitting on the mid trap, the lower trap, the rhomboids, and we wanna get into those tissues and allow them to relax to the pressure of the ball. It might be pretty intense at first. What you need to focus on is nasal, diaphragmatic only breathing. So really focusing on keeping the mouth shut and only breathing through your nose, using your breath as a form of massage. So breathing into those tender points, allowing your breath to actually apply more pressure. And then on the exhale, when your muscles are relaxing, when you're relaxing with the exhale, allowing that ball to sink deeper into those tissues. You'll also see me doing a pressure wave here. So this is moving vertically along those tissues, trying to roll it out like dough. If it's a little bit too much to do that pressure wave, you could just start with the breathing on the hot spots that you find. Next, we also want to take the arms up overhead after we've gone into that protracted position here. And we're going to just give ourselves a little bit of movement in that same path, that same alleyway, with the arms extended overhead to address overhead positioning as well. Lastly, we're going to hit some stability work here. So what I'm using is a dowel and the wall to start. This is going to be our most basic version. What I want to be doing is protracting my scapula, pushing my shoulder blades, rounding the back into the wall here, and I'm gonna sink in between the arms. My elbows are narrow, my wrists are wide, so I actually have a little bit of a V shape at my forearms to make sure that I'm externally rotating my shoulder for stability as well in that overhead positioning. So the dowel helps me in that way to really get that external rotation. You should feel a lot at the back of the shoulder and armpit there. And again, pressing out into the wall at about chest level and then sinking into it so that it becomes an overhead positioning as well. We're going to scale our previous movement by taking it down to the floor. So starting in an all fours position here, same setup with the elbows being narrow, the wrists wide, protract the scapula so that you're pushing the floor away from this position and holding strong. So here we can start with isometrics, then we can move to things like bear crawl position or plank position with this same setup and focus on isometric holds here. So here I'm relaxing in between, and again I'm going to protract away, once again pushing the floor away, keeping that shoulder positioning and really focusing on rounding out, hollowing out my chest as much as possible here with the dowel. This is the most advanced version of it here, so using that same setup, once again you can step out to a plank and you're going to push your hips back into a high position. This is called a dolphin press, and then you're going to sink back into that planked position. We also want to make sure that we work it from a fully extended arm here. So again, I'm working from a plank. We're going to do some scapular push-ups here. I have the band over my scapula, over my upper back as an external cue. So I'm going to get some resistance from it, but I'm also able to cue a bit better that protraction of the scapula that I want. So I'm going from a neutral position of my spine to that protracted scapula, which puts me into more of a little bit rounded position up in the thoracic range there. So fully extending, think of pressing the band away. You want to squeeze every little centimeter out of range of motion that you can possibly get when you are pressing that floor away, and really focus on keeping it in that underside rib cage area. Lastly, I'm a big fan of bottoms up kettlebell work. So this is going to be a supine position here. We're going to do a punch with an internally rotated screwdriver here. So I'm going to screw drive that kettlebell up as I reach. You'll see my scapula coming off the floor, and then I'm going to retract and go ahead and settle into neutral position again. Here I'm keeping the elbow straight as possible, and then pressing out. Again, the movement is solely from the scapula as much as I can squeeze out of that range of motion, internally rotating as I reach up each time, and back to external rotation, neutral position as I come back down each time. Here we're again focusing on that protraction, that anterolateral movement of the scapula, and kettlebells do it in a great way. When you put them bottoms up, it also activates that rotator cuff naturally, because you have to control and grip a little bit stronger. So I'm a big fan of bottoms up for that reason. And we can also take those presses vertically as well. So we want to be standing, nice strict pressing form. And here I'm maxing out my overall elevation of the scapula as I reach overhead. So I press first, and then I finish by reaching those last couple inches, centimeters with my scapula extending up into my shoulder intentionally. So I want to squeeze out that little bit that I can at the very end range there each time. Now it's also important to note that when I come down, I am pulling my elbow as deep as I can, my shoulder blade down and back as deep as I can to the ribs as low as possible. So we're really maxing out range of motion in both directions with this bottoms up press. All right, and there you have it. How to resolve your medial scapular winging. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend, especially if you know they're struggling specifically with medial scapular winging. If you are somebody who would like direct help and guidance fully resolving your scapular winging, or you have other training aches and injuries that are holding you back from fully training at the intensity level that you wish to, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description so that you can fill out a coaching application and schedule your mobility blueprint call. This is our opportunity to jump on a Zoom call together so that I can fully assess your current movement and mobility limitations and gather all the information I would need to fully tailor a program to your needs and goals. It's also our opportunity to clearly answer any questions that you have about online coaching and how it works and all the full details around it. So you get all the information you need to make an educated decision, and I get all the information I need to fully tailor a program to help you resolve your issues. If that sounds good, drop down below right now, schedule that call, and start moving in that direction. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine, and it does not get better than that. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. We'll see you next week.